SoccerBeat, hot.
Hi everybody, welcome to SoccerBeat, and it's Peter the Toit, and I've got the one and only Gavin Hunt here today. And guys, what Gavin's going to do for you is review and analyze and review the two CAF Champions League games from Friday. First, we'll look at the Mamelodi Sundowns game, look at the tactics that Cardoso used, looked at the way the team played. Were they lucky? Did they do the right things? And then the Pirates game, unfortunately, the defeat. Rivero, was his tactics right? Were his substitutions right? What went wrong? What could have happened? So that's how we'll analyze both games in the only way that Gavin Hunt can, is that straight from the hip. So guys, don't expect any mercy here. As you know, Gavin doesn't hold things back, speaks the truth. So I'm really looking forward to this. And guys, also don't forget to subscribe. We want to hit that 50,000 subscription mark, and there will be 50,000 rands of prizes, and support our sponsors, Betway. Go on the Betway app, click the SoccerBeat tab, and get yourself a 25 rand extra bet. Right, Gavin, let's start. First of all, Gavin, how are you?
Yeah, I'm okay. Obviously very bored and watching a lot of football, and obviously been online to try and get on a few courses again, to just do some refreshers. And I might be going over to England to watch, to go to Chelsea. A friend of mine's there, said I can go watch a training for a little bit and see what's going on there. So just basically maybe just refresh a little bit, you know.
Fantastic. Well, Gavin, let's use your expertise. You've been all the way in the Champions League, well, to semi-finals anyway. In fact, you should have been in the final there yourself, but we'll talk about that.
Yeah.
You've won league championships. You've been in CAF with Super Sport and Wits. So let's talk about the first game, Mamelodi Sundowns versus Malakli. At the end of the day, a result, when they're in the final, Sundowns in the final, so very happy there. But a question I want to ask you. First of all, the tactics that Cardoso used. Talk us through that. What he used, and did you think it worked? Would you have done something differently?
Well, I think let's just go back to the first game last week at home. I thought Al-Ahly were very good away from home. They're normally a little bit more cautious and a little bit, but they created a good few opportunities. If you look at Sundowns, certainly I don't think they've played that well, but they've got a lot of experience in this competition now, and you can see that comes through a little bit how they keep the ball, maybe just rotating the ball and keeping the ball possession wise. But I think it wasn't over both legs. It was very boring to watch. You know what I'm saying? But it's semi-final football, Peter. And the most important thing is they got to get to the final, and you got to give them credit, Sundowns. That's certainly their flagship, or the thing that they really go for now is the Champions League, and they've got to the final, so you cannot fault them. You can stand and talk all day about the tactical approach, but certainly the first leg, as I said, I thought Al-Ahly played really well. They had a good few chances, more than they normally have when they come to South Africa. Even when I played against them a few times, they're very defensively minded and they delay, but they were certainly a bit more attacking. Coming to the game yesterday, listen, it was also hard to watch because there wasn't much goal mouth action. There was a lot of, and then obviously they got a goal from a turnover from, I think it was Ribeiro who lost the ball when the ball came into his feet, he lost the ball and they nicked it off him, and then they played out. I wouldn't say Sundowns got caught on the famous word transition, but on the turnover, it looked like maybe Labusa could have got out a little bit quicker. But a hell of a goal. Jeez, what a goal to strike it there. You could say Kid Ron would have done better, but it beat him on his near post. But geez, with that pace and that effort, was a hell of a goal. There's no chance, But in saying that, I thought
been world-class save. So
when goals get scored against any team, you could, everybody points out, but I think the ball got lost when it came into him there, and he should have protected the ball or held onto the ball and made it stick a little bit better, or made something of it. And that's it. That's the moments in the game where, listen, Sundowns did change the way they played. They normally play a basic 4-3-3 with the front three players. They went with Mourinho down this one side. So they obviously defended with a 5 at the back. They pulled Madao inside. And obviously they had Madiba on the one side. So they went away from their traditional 4 at the back, with it leaving the 3 up the front. They pretty much just had the 2. They had Matthews playing, but I'm talking about natural strikers where it's Arenas, Shalile, Ribeiro, and whoever they've played, at a given time. So it was different. There was a tactical element with Tapela Marina coming on the side. So it gave him that wing back effect, and he has got the legs to give him the power to get out there. So, and then Madao obviously was fantastic. He could play. Madao could play up front. I mean, he's such a good player. I mean, he's really a guy that he's not going to get a move, but he should really be playing in a European league. I think, in my opinion. I mean, I haven't seen a better right fullback. He hasn't been done. Listen, he's going to go to that World Cup now, and I'm telling you now, maybe somebody will take. But I think his age is obviously against him, But fantastic again, and then obviously at Grant and Labusa, which gives you that left foot option, which makes you go out into a back three much easier and play out the back much easier when you got a left footed centre half. So and then obviously they had McQuena and they had Allende and Adams. So yeah, but certainly the big tactical change was bringing the right side player on to give us a little bit more width and a little bit more balance in defence, So yeah.
Given the question though, you spoke about Ribeiro. I think Ribeiro lost that ball up front because he's not that good playing with his back to the opposition goal as a traditional forward. He's better either in the spaces or on the right when he receives the ball facing the opposition's goal. He's not a natural kind of 9, and he was played almost like a false 9 in my opinion. And I think that, my opinion, and I'd like to hear yours on that, I think it blunted Sundowns going forward because they didn't have anybody to hit. He's not that kind of player. It's almost, and I think it didn't do him justice either as a player. I felt that I didn't understand that tactic, especially when you got someone like Shalalila who could run.
Yeah, but you see, Peter, that's why when you play against Alakli, and you've got to pull those centre backs out into wide areas. So how do you do that? By playing pacey players like a Shalila up the front and pulling them into wide areas. Because when you pull this, centre backs, Peter, they get a nosebleed when they go out into a wide area. You know what I'm saying? They don't like to go behind fullbacks in those areas. They like to stay central and come in onto the ball. So I think when they played with a front three, obviously I understand you're away from home, so you've got to be. And listen, it was a hostile atmosphere. I've been there, I've played there, I've seen it, I've been there, played in that against them 2-3 times away there when it's like that. Maybe it's not as big as that because they were banned when they had a lot of, but certainly it was really hostile. And I think it looked like Sundowns didn't want to lose the game the longer the game went, the more chance they had. Obviously they conceded, but I think when you play with Shalile and you play with Rainers, they pull people into wide areas, and then you're squaring centre backs up 1v1, and that's what they didn't have obviously yesterday. But in saying that, the bottom line is, Peter, semi-finals, Peter, are harder to win than finals because
100%.
Semi-finals are the worst games to play because it's the most hard. Losing the final, you're upset, but you've got to a final. But to get to a final, like semi-final game, wow, man. So I can understand Cardoso's understanding, being a little bit more conservative, taking a one striker out and playing with Topela Marino on the side, who is a striker, right back, right wing, he can play anywhere. But they didn't affect those centre backs enough. And I understand, you're away from home. Even if they played the other way around and they were at home, I think they would have played maybe the front three like they have been playing, and then play Ribeiro. They play the front two and they play Ribeiro a little bit freer and where he can come in different areas.
Yeah. Gavin, I'm also, again, very interested to hear your view on this. I'm sure the viewers out there as well. I watch a lot of African football, and I watch luckily, obviously, over the years, not only I've streamed this stuff from their games against Zamalek and big games and so on and so forth. This, in my opinion, is one of the weaker Al-Ahly teams that I've seen.
I agree with you. I totally agree with you. And this doesn't take any reflection of Sundowns or any light of Sundowns achieving what they've achieved. But for me, this is one of the worst. I'll say it straight. One of the worst Al-Ahly teams I've seen. They don't have too much X factor. They don't have that little bit of. They're very, very dogmatic, very pragmatic, very which is understandable. And believing me, that'll get you. But they need a little bit of X factor, and I don't think they've had that. And the boy that plays for Pyramids, the guy up front, Fitso, what's his name? Now you put him in that team, I think it'll be certainly a better team. But they need better wide players. They give them something, but because they certainly not the same team. They get to these situations because of who they are. But I always say, you take the supporters, put them in a blue and white jersey, and call them Cairo United, they'd be very average. You know what I'm saying? That's opinion. But listen, they get to these situations because of the experience. They know how. And listen, they're a good side, but they're certainly not where they were, in days gone by.
My only concern, because obviously we want Mamelodi Sundowns to win this cup, my only concern is that I'm a big believer in fortune favors the brave, but I don't mean that without having structure.
That's very easy, Peter. Where you sitting where you are, and when you're not sitting on the bench, and yeah, I understand.
Let me take a step back. But you can only be brave if your foundation and your structure is right. So
Yeah.
I don't, and Cardoso got Sundowns into the final, so massive tick, and that's all that counts. What's all I'm saying is that going into the final, I think by not playing players your best frontmen like Shalalile and taking Ribeiro and put him in a position that he's half as good as, I would have rather seen if Ribeiro play wide left instead of Matthews if necessary, because he's got Marino on that side, and then have your Shalalile there, because I think it would give you more attacking options. The point I'm saying, I think Sundowns are a good attacking side, and they've got good enough defenders that the coach could be a little braver in how they play.
Yeah, you see, yeah.
They're not that good. The team opposition is not that good. They're not much better than
Yeah.
Sundowns. In fact,
You see, when you play like Sundowns have played this year and last year, when you play a front three, you've got to play invertedly. You can't play with wingers like a left foot on the left, because when you play with a front three, then you'll get goals from shooting, from combination. But when you play, say you had to play Ribeiro on the left-hand side, he's not going to be the effect. He's not going to beat people and, cross balls. That's not his game. He'll come inside. So the way they've played Sundowns with, say, Reyners down the middle and Shilile on the left and Ribeiro on the right. So you're coming in and you play combinations like they do with the midfield three. So that I thought went away a little bit. And Sundowns have never been a side that are a cross inside. They've never been like that, where it's 1v1 down the side. Maybe back in the years, in the 80s, you had, when you had wingers, but they generally, the last few years, have been inverted players on the side, coming inside, playing combination play, having a shot at goal and scoring from general individuality, not where the shape and the pattern wins your football matches. Do you get what I'm saying? When you've got a shape and a pattern, you win football matches. But they win football matches because of the individuality of players in those areas,
Last question on Sundowns. And if you look at them in the PSL and you look at them in the Champions League, do you think that the league is so easy for Sundowns that when it comes to Champions League, they've got to try and switch on into another gear, and it's not that easy? They almost got to change their approach because they can play at half pace in some of these games in the PSL.
Yeah, look, let's not beat around the bush. They get away with the PSL because there's a lot of teams that play a little bit unstructured. The space gets bigger. Where you play in the Champions League, the space is shorter and tighter, and the teams are much more disciplined. You have to be, when you're a player and you play in without the ball, you have to be patient. You have to be disciplined. You have to have a mindset. I need to do this job. Where in South Africa, you'll watch a South African game, and the first 10, 15, 20 minutes, a team, they've worked on a shape, they're all disciplined, and eventually the discipline goes. And you watch any game in South Africa, the last 20 minutes in a PSL game is absolute basketball. Boom, 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 boom. And because the shape is gone, the pattern is gone, the distances in football are the most important thing in football. So your distances between your back four, your midfield, and if your distances get big, the space gets big. And that's why Ribeiro and these guys, the space gets big and they can play. But when you go in Africa, these Egyptian teams and North African teams, they keep their distances equal all the time. So you can't get in. And they'll do it for 120 minutes. They won't do it for 90 minutes. You know what I'm saying? We have to acquire that mentality for us to advance in world football. You know what I mean?
And I think that's what Cardoso is trying to bring to the team, actually, that you've got to
possibly. But he doesn't need it in the PSL because in the PSL you get away with it. You know what I'm saying? You get away with it,
Gavin, we're going to take a short break. And then we'll come back and talk about Orlando Pirates' sad defeat away from to Pyramids. See you after the break.
Okay.
How would you like to win a little something extra just for joining the best in the game? For a limited time, we are teaming up with Betway and giving all of you access to a SoccerBeat exclusive. If you join Betway using the sign-up code SoccerBeat, now you get 25 Rand extra bet. That's right. It's time to get way more out of every bet. Standard T's and C's apply.
Welcome back, everybody. It's Gavin Hunt, Peter du Toit, SoccerBeat, and we are going to look at Orlando Pirates' sad loss to Pyramids. I mean, that's a game, Gavin, that I don't think Pyramids beat Pirates. I think Pirates beat themselves in that game. You go ahead twice away from home. Surely that should have been job done.
Yeah, look, I mean, it's a sad. I mean, everybody was. It would have been fantastic to have two teams, and I really thought. Listen, I thought the Pyramids team when they played at FNB last week against Pirates were the better team. If you're really honest, even though Pirates did have chances, they would have chances, but they were the better team. Wow, man, they really played. I was really impressed with them. Look, yeah, I agree with you, Peter. I think Pirates, when you're in that situation, I think they were 2-1 up. Even when we went to 2-2, they still threw, and then obviously, they lost the 3-2. Listen, I think at Pirates' Achilles heel, if I may be honest, I don't think. I think it's something to do with defensive. Certainly the defense shape, the goalkeeper. I think it's for them to Pirates to go to the next level. I think that's the area that they certainly need to, get better at. I mean, I think they've been conceding free kicks and set pieces for some time now, not winning the first header or the goalkeeper, whatever, and I think if the last 2-3 years I think it's been their problem, I mean, attacking wise, they've got some great attackers. And it's a game, I'm sure they'll be sick today. All the Pirates supporters and all the Pirates management and Jose Rivera, they'll be sick. And the players not to win that game because they had it with 20, 30 minutes to go. And I really feel for them because they've done well. I mean, he's really done well. I mean, you look at all the local domestic cups. But then you've got to ask the question, why is the gap so big still in the league? And I think it proved again yesterday why they haven't certainly got better,
But Gavin, so let's just look at that because Pirates fans are going to be asking themselves, it's clear all season that there's been a problem at centre-back or certainly defending corners and set pieces or any form of crosses. Now, you've played a defender all your life and you've coached teams all your life. I've played, but I've never coached. But I've seen enough games and I've got some football savvy. It's, you can actually you can't turn good strikers or good wingers, bad wingers and bad strikers into good strikers or good wingers because it's a lot more to that game. But you can turn decent defenders into excellent defenders, in my opinion, because it's quite a basic thing you've got to do. You've got to win.
But if they're humble enough, if a defender is humble enough to accept that, do you understand? There's a lot of defenders. I'm not saying Orlando Pirates in South Africa that are not humble enough to say, I need to close down by making a 10, 50 meter sprint and then dropping off again without even touching the ball. Am I disciplined enough to do that for 90 minutes? And I don't think in South Africa there's enough defenders. And I think it comes from the youth development that we're not producing defenders. There's not people who want to defend. And I say it again, like Pep Guardiola last year or the year before, he won the Champions League. He won the Champions League with 4 centre-backs playing across the back. As soon as he takes the two outside backs out and puts fullbacks in there, they don't win the thing again. So it's got to tell you something that we need proper defenders and people who are willing to stick their head on the ball, willing to tackle people, willing to stop people. And I don't think South Africa produces enough of those players anymore. Until even our youth development teams, it's all about playing out the back. We need people who are going to defend. You know what I'm saying?
Well, playing out the back is a completely different subject. But your first step is you've got to be able to attack a ball from corners. And every corner or free kick that comes into Pirates, it's got to be the centre-back's ball. Forget even the goalkeeper. It's got to be the centre-back's ball.
Peter, when I look for a centre-back, the first thing I say to an agent or anybody, can he head the ball? They say, no, he can play, he can pass. I said, I don't care about him passing out the back. Can he head the ball? Because when the pressure's on, Peter, Peter, when the pressure's on, there's 2 boxes. You either have to defend your box or you have to attack a box. And you need people who are going to put their head on the ball. People who are going to attack balls. And, and people in today's football, there's not enough people who get enough credit for having those type of defenders who can. I mean, Liverpool were going to win the league now. They wouldn't win the league. And they brought in Van Dijk. He heads balls in his box and he attacks balls in other box and he stops people playing. That's why they win.
Well, the perfect example is when Stuart Baxter won the league with Kaizer Chiefs. His centre-backs, all were top class in the air, and obviously a very good goalkeeper behind them. So if you've got 2 centre-backs at least who can win everything there, and Sefa Mashimaiti and Morgan Gould and Tower, those 3 would win everything in the air, and they could attack the ball in the opposition box.
I won leagues with the centre-backs and the best goalkeeper. My back 3 were key. You know, I mean, you either Morgans and the Bongani Komalos and Katzers and Tyson Latswaya and Bootle. These guys can hit balls. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know, and I think Pirates at home and when you play domestically, you can get away with it because they're quick and they intercept and they look good and they dominate the ball. But when it comes to balls going in your box, I think there's got to be question marks asked. You know, of you know.
Here's the question: if you watch the Pyramids game, particularly the second leg, in the PSL, most PSL teams seem to play with inverted wingers, so there's no crosses coming in. So Pirates haven't really been bad at crosses. They've been bad at defending corners in local league and free kicks. In this game, Fiston Mayele, he was the first to the ball when it came to the first goal was a cross, came from wide left, and the other two were corners, if I'm correct. Yes. So I think part of the problem is that we don't have wide wingers who a left footer on the left wing and a right footer on the right wing sending crosses in. So our teams are not used to defending crosses. But if you look at the Pirate situation, surely the coach knows this. And yes, you've got 3 centre backs. But if you look at the third goal, which came from a corner,
so why were they? Why are they? You know, you got the question you got to ask yourself. They've gone to 3 centre backs. Why? Maybe they don't trust the 2. Well, maybe they don't trust the 2, and maybe you know those type of things. I always say when teams go to a back 3, they're not trusting the 2. Then they want a little bit more surety. You know, at the back. You know,
either, or they're not trusting the goalkeeper either because you've
also or they're not trusting their wingers. You know, because they play invertedly, and then they use the wing back. So there's generally a chain of reaction or chain of sequence when you're playing with a back 3. I mean, they brought a youngster in now of the last how many games? 5, 6 games, or 8 or 10 games. You know, at this time of the season. So it's been quite a. Maybe they've had injuries. I don't know. You know, I think they have had a few injuries at centre back. You know, the boy Korki and
Nadar, the Nigerians out who would have made a big difference.
Yeah, so I can understand. You know, they've had to make allowances for that, and obviously, maybe it also gives you a bit more insurance. But then you need what's in front of you to defend because you can't just defend in. So basically, you're defending in your back third now. You're not defending in your middle third or in your front third because you're going to be one player short in a pressing in the front, and also you're going to be one player short in the midfield in front of your goals. Because once your centre half start jumping out into midfield and trying to press, they're going to get bounced. You'll play a 1-2 past them or into the wide areas. So you've got to be very careful. The structure of a team when you go into a back 3 or playing with 3 centre backs changes a lot in the dynamics in the front of the team. So. You know, but there's always a reason why coaches change. I don't, because we don't work with the team daily. And obviously they felt playing into Africa, the extra protection might give them, you know, and it was proved right. They were up 2-1. They were flying. They were up, you know. And then once you go up, then you can go back 5. But I thought in front of the back 5, I think that's where the problem came in the second half.
Let's look at that question. You know, let's take it from up front. Nakota is probably the quickest player in the PSL. And he was certainly causing.
What a goal! What a goal!
And he's also scored, so he's on a high. They always take him off with 20, 25, 30 minutes left to play and bring on. So they took him off and they bring on Tito. So they're playing without a really a right winger because Van Rooyen's off injured and Shandu is not going forward to the same extent. So,
Shandu's a good wing back as well. He was a good wing back.
He was under pressure, so he was not bombing forward. So who was the outlet? Evidence is not the quickest player in the world. Mofokeng, you know, has been marked very tightly, and he's not as quick as Nakata. You bring on Tito, who's going to get the ball. You've had him as an exception.
And Lamini, yeah.
And Lamini. So I wasn't quite certain what was Tito supposed to do there.
So for me, I mean, listen, it's always easier afterwards. But if you watch the game in the last 20 minutes, I don't think the back. You know, everybody talks about the centre backs, and I think it looked like for me the problem was in the midfield. Makola was by himself, and then Patrick is not going to play in a structure in a 2. He's going to wander. Clemini's going to wander. So you got Makola now. Now you're under the pressure. He's by himself, and I think talent also wanders a little bit. But I think the structure of the midfield in front of the back 5 needed to be a bit tighter. Do you understand?
Yeah.
From the width, from the sides, from the middle. And what happened? It looked like they got a little, and now they start dropping into little holes, and then your centre back doesn't know where to go. So that's, if you're going to play this 5-4-1, which basically what happened, I think your midfield four needs to be tighter on the sides and let the space on the outside for Hotto and Shandu go, and keep the midfield four tighter so you can get to press a little bit in the middle third. So now you're only pressing into your back third. So now a flick or a touch or a ball is a problem. You know what I'm saying? I'm not saying that's the reason why the goals were scored, but I think if you look at your midfield, I think they needed to be tighter on the sides, play a midfield four really tight, no wingers inside, and then let one jump out of midfield to support the striker when it's on the left or on the right, and then play out from there. It's easy to always say these things afterwards, but I do think that, like we said earlier, Pirates must be kicking themselves not to be out this competition when you had 1-0, 1-1, 2-1. They got to score 2, and then they still got to score, and those goals just came at the wrong. I think the goals came at the wrong time. They scored and they scored. You know what I'm saying? So, but if you look at it, I think McCullough was by himself, and once you bring on Patrick and Dlamini, who are fantastic players, they're not going to sit and be in that disciplined shape. You're not going to keep Patrick on the left in a 4. You're not going to keep Dlamini in the middle next to McCullough and somebody on the right. You're not going to keep that. They're not those type of players. You know what I'm saying?
He didn't have Mosele on the bench, and
Goodman. You see, now if you take Goodman and McCullough together, they could have given you a little bit more protection there. Yeah, was he not on the bench?
I don't know if he was injured. No, there's no word from the club whether he was injured, but I really thought that was a mistake, because him coming in there could have closed up shop. He's very good at closing down space. But 2 questions.
He would have stayed together with McCullough. They stay there. They don't go anywhere. You know what I mean? And then they play. Even what's the other boy, Miguel Tim? They also they just they sit there. You know what I mean?
He hasn't had a look in for ages, and I think he could have.
I'm saying those type of players. I'm not saying him, but I'm saying those. But you're right, Goodman. I forgot. I didn't even look at the team who was. I was just watching the game randomly. You know. Yeah.
Gavin, 2 questions before we go. 2 important questions I want to ask you. So, I mean, this is obviously a bit of probably lack of maturity and experience in the Champions League came to bear for Pirates, and I think they'll learn from this. But they've got
to get to the semi-final, Peter. They've done brilliantly, man. They've done brilliant.
No, top class. So well done there, and that's the point I'm making. But they've got a Nedbank Cup final coming up. They've got a big derby against Kaizer Chiefs, and they still want to come second. And possibly they're only 3 points. If they win all their games, they're only 3 points behind Sundowns. But so they've got an outside chance. How does Rivera, as a coach, how are you going to lift that team right now? How does he lift them? You've been in that. I mean, you haven't been in that exact position, but
I think obviously they're back on the plane now as we speak. I think they're flying today, so they'll and it's direct flight from Cairo, so they'll get back in here Monday morning. When are they playing again? Wednesday.
They a big game against Chiefs. They're playing on Wednesday.
I don't know how they're going to catch up those games. I mean, I don't know where the space and where they're going to fit in, because they've got to play SuperSport. That game was cancelled and put off. Yeah. I don't think. Listen, I don't think they got anything to be upset about. I mean, upset about the result, but I mean, to get to where they got to, and to go, they've been in the Nedbank Cup. They've gone all the way in the last 3-4 finals to the top 8. Then to go in. I'm talking knockout football. I'm not talking PSL League. I think they've done brilliantly. There's a lot of young players there that are in that side who haven't had that experience, haven't been there. I think they'll learn so much. But I think as the management of the club, I don't know how it works there. Does a coach sign the players or the management sign the players? I'm not sure. Yeah. But can the coach go and say, listen, I recommend X, Y, Z, but obviously they're going to have a new coach. Yeah. But if you look at Pirates, they certainly need, for me, they need a bit more strength in their team, a bit more power in their team. And I go back to 95. You know that 95 team that won the Champions League. Innocent Mayonga in centre midfield. John Moeti, centre midfield. Jerry, Fish at the back. Gavin Lane. I'm talking about people that can win very pretty and they can win very ugly. I think Pirates who win football matches very pretty, very nice. But I don't know about the ugly side of the game. And I think as a management of the club, you've got to say, right, what do we need? Yeah, we got a good side. I mean, I think they're fantastic, and Jose has done brilliantly. But how do we go to the next level? They're going to need a few of those type of players. And because when it comes to those areas, I think that's certainly where they lack,
So, guys, Pirates need a bit of ugly. Then your last question, Gavin. Fiston Mayele. Chiefs are targeting the player. He's 30, and he's obviously he must be on a good wicket there. But if there was an open checkbook, do you recommend him Chiefs, even Pirates?
I think he'd score in the PSL. I think he could be a 30-goal striker. I really do.
I agree.
He's not involved in all the touches and the Mickey. He'll play in the box. He'll score in the PSL. I think he can get 30 goals. I really do. I think if you service him, I think he'll make goals on his own by just movement, strength, power, and he gets a shot away. His strike rate of hitting the target is good. I think he's not a 20 goal. I think he's a 30 goal striker. I really do.
And he's strong and quick. And he scored goals all his life. And I tell you something, just in these 2 games alone, he looked like somebody who was playing for a contract in South Africa.
I don't know. I tell you, it's a lot of money. Is he 30? What's he 30 now? Is he 30?
Just I think he turned 30.
And it's a lot of money, but I mean, but there's clubs in South Africa who don't look long term; they look short term. So yeah,
Kevin, you know what? If that would give Chiefs, if he can score 30 goals for Chiefs, they run for the championship. Simple as that.
They win the treble. They win the treble. They win the treble.
There's no price you can put on that. Chiefs and Pirates and Sundowns are the Man Uniteds, the Liverpools.
Yeah, 100%. They're the only teams that I don't. Maybe not one of them. Maybe one club won't afford him, but I think there's 2 clubs will certainly afford him. I don't think maybe the one might not pay for him, but he's certainly. I'm talking domestically and Champions League at this space, this level. I certainly think he's. I've seen him. I've seen him quite a bit. We obviously watch videos and all that of him, and you say, well, we can't get him. We had to get him when he was 18, and then sell him.
Doesn't matter. You get him now. He would make the difference to all 3 teams, Chiefs, Pirates, and Sundowns, because he's absolutely different to the others. And you know what? Football is about today, not about tomorrow.
When you're in that space, when you work at other clubs, it's about trying to get today and survive. Yeah.
So, personally, I'd love to see him in the PSL next season. Gavin, you're a star. I want to get you back to preview the Chiefs Pirates derby that's coming up. We'll chat then.
Okay. Yeah.
Cheers, big man.
Cheers brother.
SoccerBeat, what?